Hello and welcome to Kundli Consult, the first live session which I have planned. The plan is that every month I will have one live session where I'll try to explain some of the concepts of astrology which I've learned over the years by reading, looking at charts and interpretations from various shastras. Now, the purpose is basically, a lot of people have a lot of myths about astrology. They collect information from various sources, mostly through internet, which is now, very easy. And then they form opinions, and there is a mindset which is there towards the various aspects of astrology, which builds in, and you tend to look at that. However, the way astrology was written by our great rishis was something very different. It was for the purpose of guidance on human life, how you interpret the various events in your life, how you understand what is going on in your life and bring a pattern out of it, and then try to resolve the various problems by doing corrections through your own karmas, everyday behaviors, and through various rituals, which could be termed as remedies. And then, as time went on, it really became so-called remedies. But the problem was that over the years, as time passed on and various people latched on to various ideas and it became a kind of big profession, the purpose was forgotten, the way it should be interpreted got forgotten, and then it got replaced by certain dictums or rules of astrology. And you would tend to, or the astrologers and the people who understood astrology tended to listen to those kind of rules, work out on those rules, and therefore make predictions. And without really understanding the depth of some of the remedies, some of the rituals which were given for certain specific purposes, they took them. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it did not work, but it became established. When it worked, people said this is the remedy, for this particular problem, and then few other people tried it, and it worked for some, it did not work for some. Some are kind of more generalized to give you the results, and therefore some good did happen, and therefore they got established. But when you read through these rituals, when you try to understand these rituals which have come as remedies in astrology, you then begin to figure out why it is being done, and therefore you can backlink it to the combinations that are on your chart or the patterns that a certain set of positions give a planet or a rashi, that is a sign, a zodiac sign, delivers. And it it got established by that, and you can interpret and connect. And once you start doing that, you can go to two extremes. Basically, one extreme is that you actually start predicting what would happen today, tomorrow in your daily life. You can do even certain, even small things, like, you can figure out when somebody's mobile phone or somebody's laptop in the house will stop working or get broken, or there will be a minor issue in the house today, when the fuse or an electrical appliance can go, when my fridge will stop working. Or the other way also, that if the fridge has stopped working, then what does it indicate, what is coming there? You can actually start predicting those things, observing those things, when you start understanding this astrology at a much deeper level. And through these series of classes or sessions, as I would say, my attempt would be basically to try and go and show you that the depth of astrological knowledge which our rishis left in various their books, their stories, their philosophy, and how it can be used as a guidance in your life and make actually start predicting yourself. If you are there with 4, 5, 6 classes or 6 sessions of these from me, live sessions from me, not only I will start clearing some of the doubts as these questions come up, but also I will try and bring you to that level. If you have interest in astrology, that at least you can start figuring out the patterns which are happening in your life, why they are happening, and therefore at some stage you would be able to do some of the remedies yourself rather than asking some astrologer or somebody else. So this first session which I have kept, and I've called it the three purposes of life, are basically when you look at a horoscope or when you start in astrology or from a very basic, and you try to see what is there in a person's chart or what a person has to do in life. That's why I've called it the purpose of life. Then you start by looking at three things. Just three things can give you a basic idea about what are the certain purposes or pattern in your life that you have to go through. It may happen at the age of 25, it may happen at the age of 40, it may happen at the age of 60. But these three are the patterns which will happen in your life. And probably there is nothing, absolutely nothing, which you can do to avoid these things. Now, for some it may be positive, for some it may be negative, but essentially those are the some of the major purpose why a particular person is born in this life, and in this life he has to go through these. And of course, there are so many other things that will happen, but these are the three, I would say, the starting point or the critical point by which you can start analyzing and start predicting some things. And also, for general people, you can basically try and figure out if these things are going to happen, how they will pan out over a period of time. Once you go through a few classes, you will be able to put together, some of these things can be put together by you only after if you have gone through some 3 or 4 sessions. Some may make sense right now for those people who know a little bit about the astrology. They may start figuring out right now. Those who do not may be able to figure it out after a few classes. But what I promise you is that if you attend a series of these sessions, you would be able to make out a lot that is going on in your life. So let's start from the first of the three purposes in your life, and that is seen by looking at the placement of sun in your horoscope. Sun, that is Surya in your horoscope, and wherever the sign of Leo is. So it's essentially a combination of where the sun is placed, which house in your horoscope, and where is Leo. And from there comes the first purpose in your life or the first major event in your life which would happen, which would give you a sense of direction. Now, as I said in the beginning, it can be positive, it can be negative, but It is going to happen, and there is nothing which you can stop about it. So the question would be, so therefore, if the combination is such of Sun and Leo in your horoscope that it may take you through a bad experience, can no remedy work? Well, the answer to this is any remedy to change that purpose, that experience will not happen. That's for sure. So that purpose, that event is going to happen. That experience will come into your life. But whether you will be able to deal with it easily, whether it will come happen where you have to go through a lot of struggles, or it can be pretty easy, that can be changed to certain extent or modulated to certain extent by whatever you remedy that you do for sun or the placement of a sun in a particular horoscope. So before we try to understand, what is this purpose of sun in your life, which I am calling the first purpose of your life, you need to understand what is sun. Now, in astrology, wherever you start, you look at the classics like Brihad Parashar Hura Shastra, which is considered as the Bible of astrology. There are two main things which are, as a one liner which is put for sun. Number one, sun is the king of the nine planets, the nine grahas, which basically give you the entire horoscope in Vedic astrology. So he is the king, and therefore, you know, you can talk about afflictions of sun by the various planets like Saturn or Rahu or whatever, but he is still the king, and therefore he decides what happens in the horoscope. He is the life of the horoscope. And therefore, you can say, in a sense, nothing is permitted in this horoscope if the king does not allow. So, if it is a kingdom, then nothing happens in the kingdom unless the king has a consent to it, that he allows that thing to happen. That is number one. So, he is the life giver to the horoscope, he is the king of the horoscope. And second, which is the most important part, and therefore, how does it affect the purpose, or what determines that purpose by sun? He is the soul. Sun is a soul. So in astrology, in classics and Vedic astrology, sun is associated with the soul. And remember, a soul is a pure soul. A soul always is pure. As Gita says, a soul is pure. It is when the soul incarnates as a body and you get a life on earth, you do various bad deeds and good deeds, and therefore you enter the life cycle of karma, of taking birth and death again, as per the Vedic Shastras. But the soul remains, and therefore the purpose of the soul or the cleanliness of the soul remains. And therefore, wherever the sun is, it is in one line, it is the interpretation, it is the purpose of the soul. And how does that come, that you will see manifest in a horoscope? So I have a theory or a hypothesis that in whichever previous births that your karma is coming together to give birth in this life, and as per as my interpretation, any life is basically an accumulation of previous four lives, and that is why you have the four nakshatra padas, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So every nakshatra has four padas. So effectively, there are four lives karmas which are put together, which you have to experience, pay back, whatever you might call it, in this life. And therefore, the soul in one of these lives, when possibly you're dying or you have experienced that entire life, you had you lived with the desire, or put it the other way, you died with a desire. Okay. So it could be possibly, as consider a very simple thing that possibly you could not help your family financially. Okay. And therefore, your family went through a very, very struggling life because you could not arrange finances. You could not do that. Or maybe you would have blown money and you did not meet the financial needs of your family by blowing your money away. But towards the end of your life, you recognized, you know, only if I had money, I would probably have been able to help my family, or I would have liked to help my family. Why I did not get money so that I could, avoid the struggles that my family went through. Now, you could not complete that, and that remained as a desire because you lived that life and you strongly felt that this is one thing how I could not do it, and it lives with you possibly, you know, at your end stages of that particular life or when you're dying. So what happens is therefore that is a soul's desire. It remains with you. And therefore, whenever that desire of the soul in whichever line is to be completed, because it remains as a soul's desire, it has to be completed. You are born in a particular configuration where this desire of the soul, the sun, has to get completed by experience. Now, the very easy interpretation would be that if it is a soul's desire, you would possibly be in a life where you could earn easily and keep all the fulfillments of your family. That's one way of it. But normally, when you analyze charts and when I see so many charts, it does not happen that way. What happens is basically at some point in life, even if that is not a major part of your life, at some point in life, you reach a situation where your family comes to struggle because of money. And then you also struggle with them, and slowly, by your work, by your struggle, you are slowly able to bring money into the family, and the family, again, from that lower struggle positions, comes to a position where it is now has the money, and you have a satisfaction, kind of satisfaction that I have pulled out my family from this financial struggle. So you go through that experience because the soul has to deliver, it has to complete that feeling that I have helped my family to come out of struggle. And that is the essence of sun as a soul. And that purpose cannot be changed. And where the sun is, where Leo is, determines basically how that struggle will happen or where that struggle happen. I gave you an example of family. Now it could be that you were a big, say, an industrialist or somebody who employed a lot of people. Now, you, because of your faltering or some other reason, probably your workplace collapsed, and a lot of people who were working for you as employees, maybe they lost their jobs and their family went into trouble. So if you ended up with a desire in that life when you died, that how I could not help the people, the families of the people that were working for me, that were employed by me. I have taken them into a messy situation, and I could not do it. In the next lives, whenever where the when in which life, whichever of the four lives as per my interpretation, you get to fulfill that soul's desire, your son probably would be placed in the 10th house of work, and would have a combination where you would help to bring up a lot of people. Now that may be by again you entering into a business where you employ people, or you could be just helping people, families of people, by some other noble cause or work, upliftment. Say you may be working in an NGO where you're helping families to come out of financial struggle. So this is the purpose of the soul, or the soul's desire, and is indicated by the combination of where Sun is and where Leo is in your horoscope. So it's an it is something which cannot be avoided, and therefore, as I said, that this is one of the purpose of life. Wherever the Sun is, since it is the king, since it is the soul, that purpose, that experience you have to go through. You cannot overcome. There can be no remedy to it. But yes, the struggle towards that, those things can be identified, and you say, okay, you make the struggle a little bit less, or you help to reach that experience, that goal quicker. But you have to go through it. And this is where, you know whether a remedy will work or not work, and what should be the remedy, and how it is determined from the horoscope comes in. Okay. Now, to give you an example, I would say, I'll just taking a random example. Say you are Capricorn ascendant, that is Makar Lagna, which has Sun in the second house. So that would be Aquarius. Your second house would be Aquarius. And Leo, which is the sign of Sun, would be the eighth house, transformation. Eighth house is the house of transformation, which has the sign of Leo for Capricorn ascendant. And second house is the house of family. And suppose Sun is placed there. So what it essentially means that in one of the life, since it is family and since Aquarius is a sign for desire, you could not fulfill. uh, Aquarius is also for incomes in Kalpulush Kundali and desires. So you could not fulfill the desires of your family, second house Sun, because you did not money, or you simply did could not, from your income you could not fulfill the desires. And they went through a big trouble, and that's why you're Leo in the eighth house. But it is now the house of transformation. So in this life, you will come to a situation where you will have a feeling that whatever happens, I take care of my family. That's the feeling of a soul that comes naturally. And sometimes you're not able to even explain it. In a sense, you might be going through a lot of pain to deliver that, say in this case to the family, who may not be respecting you, who may not be understanding what you're doing for them. And sometimes you may also be feeling that why am I doing all these things to people who does not, who do not appreciate what I'm doing. But it's a soul's desire, and therefore you will end up doing it, whether you like it or not. You will be hesitantly doing it. Sometimes you will be liking to do it, and you would do it, and people around you will not be able to figure out why is he doing this, because that's the purpose of the soul. And therefore this is the first purpose of life that you see, which you cannot change, and which is determined by the Sun, and the house that Sun owns, where is it in your horoscope. As we go along in this lecture series, we'll talk more about Sun in detail, and therefore what are the other symptoms that you will get, and therefore how you will tackle that. How do you see Sun? What are the other things? See, apart from the purpose of the soul, which anyway it has to deliver, it will have certain other attributes which it will deliver, and therefore those are the things that will also show up, where possibly a remedy will work, not for the purpose of the souls, which is determined by this combination, but the other things. So Sun always will denote your fame. It's the owner of the fifth house, therefore your education, your children, which are all the significances of the fifth house, that will also have some effect. But those possibly can be remedied to certain extent, but not this purpose of the soul, as I call it. So this is the first purpose which I wanted to talk about. And the same series, you have the moon. So Sun is the soul and moon is the mind. So it's a set of a feeling, therefore, that you carry, which you wanted to do desperately. It had certain emotions in your mind which persisted very very strongly in you in when you finished your last life, and you carry on that. You carry on again that, as sun is the king of the horoscope in classics, it is said, moon is said to be the queen of the horoscope. These two are, again I mentioned, the life of the horoscope. They are the living thing in the horoscope which gives you the purpose of life. So as sun gave you one purpose, which is the purpose of soul, moon is the second one, which is the purpose of your emotions. So whatever you do, how you react to people, whatever the emotions that you carry through, how what will be your mental makeup to the various struggles and experiences and people around you, that is determined by moon, and it comes from your experience of your past life. So the sign of cancer, which the moon owns, is also a sign of community. That is people around you, your extended family where you live, your overall friends, your neighbors, in a en bloc situation. Each your family, your neighbors are denoted by other houses in your horoscope also. But in general, if you put people in your environment who come in contact with you in your environment, that's the house of cancer, and that is what moon signifies. So how do you behave, how do you deal with them, and therefore what are the experiences that you go through, is what the placement of moon and placement of cancer delivers. So if in a particular life for which you got moon in a certain placement in this life, in that particular life, if you felt at the end of it, yes, to these set of people I should have behaved in a different way, I should have had a different feeling. Okay. Why carry on this feeling? You will probably come in contact with the same set of people or a different set of people, but you will have to go through that correction of emotion, the correction of feeling, because of which you got a placement of moon at a particular sign. Again, taking from the same thing. For example, you got moon in your tenth sign, in your tenth house of your horoscope. Tenth house is again the house of your profession, house of your place of work. Okay, and your moon there means you have come with a particular set of emotions for your workplace, towards you people in your workplace, and you have to go through that experience to complete that cycle, because you desired it, because you felt at the end of that particular life that no, I haven't been able to deal it with it properly. See, one of the basic things about karma, which I have a strong feeling, is that an interpretation from various classics. It's not about you did this and therefore you will get that. It is not that. It is not punishment and reward. This is generally how karma is projected over the years, because people have really, as it transcended, the knowledge transcended from Rishis generation after generation, it probably got lost somewhere midways. And you have most of the, you see a lot of thing is that you did this and therefore you get this punishment and reward. Karma is, according to my interpretation of classics, is not that. It is about the experience or the situations you get, to get that experience to correct yourself. And until you are able to master that and go over that, you don't move on. So if you are still unable in this life to master that particular emotion, then maybe in another life you would again get that. Still, you are able to. Most probably the next life itself, and that's where probably, as they say, that solutions are all problem are in our Bhagavad Gita. It essentially comes from there that don't do your work, don't have an expectation. When you don't have an expectation, you probably don't have an emotion about what you're doing. And if you don't have an emotion for the work that you are doing. You don't have an expectation for what you are doing for somebody else, then you essentially don't have that, that inability to maintain a particular emotion. You expect somebody will pay back for your what you have done to him. It's an emotional expectation, and when that does not happen, you feel, you are hurt. But this is what you have to master, and that is why, if you are unable to master, in the next lives you get moon in a particular position where the situation, the house where it is basically the situation you have put there, so that you learn to master that emotion. So sun was about soul, moon is about mind. And this, the placement of moon and placement of cancer, is again one of the purposes of experience in your life, which you probably cannot remedy. As I again say, the way it will happen, whether you can reduce if it is painful, whether you can enhance if it is good, whether the struggle will be there, how much you can reduce it, that path probably can be made by remedies. But the very purpose cannot be changed, because these are the king and queen, the soul and the mind of the horoscope, which determines these two particular purposes of your life. The third, and probably the most important, is the overall purpose of your life, and that is determined by the ascendant, the lagna. So, the lagna of your horoscope, or the ascendant sign of the horoscope, I'll speak about the ascendant lord, the degree of ascendant, the nakshatras in much later class. But the Rashi of the ascendant is a pattern of your life. In one of my videos in this channel, I've put, the ascendant and the pattern of your life. Do see that video, and you'll probably also get some additional understanding about what happens in a particular, what a particular ascendant gives you a pattern in life. So the ascendant, and I'm not talking of the moon rashi. Generally in India, people know a lot about their moon rashi. Meri rashi kya hai? I'm not talking of your rashi. I'm talking about your lagna, the ascendant. So if you have horoscope wherever the first house, your lagna horoscope or your lagna kundli, the lagna house is the ascendant, and that is the purpose of your overall life, the experience that you are supposed to get. And and therefore you can always say, there is a particular ascendant has a, if all the 12 ascendants have a purpose in of giving an experience, then how is it that, there should be a 12 patterns, a broadly 12 patterns in life? The answer is yes, there are overall 12 patterns, but how it will manifest finally will be dependent on where the placement of ascendant is, what are the interactions of various planets to that ascendant is, and all that thing. I have talked in that, video, one particular ascendant and how that manifests as a pattern. And I will repeat that here to make you probably understand better, since we are talking about the purpose of life, and the third and the most important purpose, which is the overall purpose and experience of life. So, say for example, the Capricorn. If you are Makar Lagan or Capricorn, okay, one of the Capricorn is a sign of burden. It is a sign of, say, a swamp, a muddy water. Okay, so if you have Capricorn as your ascendant, you would get at various phases in your life, if not complete life, but a major part of life, you would have these muddy waters where you don't know which direction to go. It will repeatedly happen in various contexts. Now, where is your Lagna rod? Capricorn's Lagna, Capricorn house is owned by Saturn. So, determines in which sign Saturn is, what it is power. Those are the manifestations. So dependent on, so if Saturn, if Capricorn is for muddy waters, and say Saturn is in your second house, which is basically on, if Capricorn is your ascendant, then Aquarius will be your second house. It's a second house is house of family. Second house is house of uh, food, amongst many other things, family, food, cash money, cash flow, money flow, actual liquid money flow. This is the second house. And Aquarius is the desire. So if you have ascendant of Makar and Saturn, which is the owner, sits in the second house, you will face very muddy situations with respect to the family, the money flow in the family, food in the family. It's quite possible you'll face a situation where people are not getting, there's extended period when you have to think about how to manage food for the family, or there might be a set of people in the family who may have severe problems with respect to intake, disease related to food, and you are trying to manage that burden. So, what exactly will happen is the combination. But what Capricorn as a Makar giving you is, it stands for burden and muddy water. So you will have to bear the burden. You will have to pull them out of that burden, that muddy water, or you'll have to deal with them. So that's what, if Capricorn is your ascendant, that's a broad pattern, and it will manifest through where the placements of your Lagna Lord is, what are the other combinations, those kind of things. So in that video, for example, which I have on my channel, I had given one particular, it's a kind of a dictum that Capricorn ascendant, you will have to feed your spouse. Now, that's a very short way of saying what I have interpreted. But what it essentially means is that at some point in time, if you are a Capricorn Lagna, you will have be in a situation where you will have to take care of your spouse's food in some way or the other. Now, it can be physical manifestation, it can be through other ways. To give you an example, opposite to Capricorn is Cancer, which is a sign of moon. So wherever moon is, in if you are a Capricorn ascendant, okay, from there the question of food comes in. So, for example, if for Capricorn Lagan, if moon is placed in the sixth house, sixth house is house of disease, house, one of the significations. So it's quite possible that depending on the combinations, I'm making a very generalized combination. So if you have Capricorn Lagna, then it will happen in your life that your spouse is gets some disease, some accident, something where you have to physically feed him or her. Okay, so that would be, a Capricorn ascendance, that you will have to feed your spouse in some way, and it is not just the literal meaning that I'm talking about. So physical manifestation depend on where moon is, this manifestation will happen. So if it is in the, as I said, in the sixth house, then probably it is because of some disease that you will have an extended period where you have to physically feed your spouse. So these are certain manifestations. If you know that this is the ascendant, this is the purpose is to pass of the ascendant. The third important is to give you an overall experience in your life, depending on what you experience in that life, good or bad, and you try to go through that to neutralize that karma, because as you have got that ascendant, that is one of the purpose of life. So for example, you are a Taurus ascendant, वृषभ, हिंदी में वृषभ, वृषभ लग्न के हैं अगर आप हैं. So if you are Vrishabh Lagna or Taurus Lagna, Taurus stands for basically uh, resources. Yeah? So if you are Taurus Lagna, the major part of your life would be about managing resources. Now, you could be managing resources for somebody else. You could be that you don't have resources and somehow you're trying to collect resources, food, money, whatever it may be. Or in your work, you are in such a way that you have to, manage resources for somebody else. So you may be an investment banker managing the high net worth individuals, their wealth, depending on where the Lagna Lord is and what the other combination is. But if it is Taurus, it is managing resources. It can be also, I'm talking of just one of the purposes. Okay. Now, Taurus has various other things associated with it. So, family is associated with it. So it could be that your whole life goes in trying to manage the family, the emotions between the family, the fights between the family, depending on what uh, how Taurus is, which planets are aspecting it, and where Venus is. Why I'm saying Venus? Because Venus is Lord of Taurus. So where your Lagna is, which house it is, which is the planet which is giving it a drishti, how it is being looked at, where is the Lagna Lord, how it is positioned, that gives you the physical manifestation in terms of how this pattern will play out, how this resources, this family part of Taurus are taking the two most important Karakattvas of Taurus house. It can be any of these two, it can be a combination of these two, it can be a combination of other Karatatvas, but it is essentially management or struggle for one of the Karatatvas of the Taurus sign. And if you have got the ascendant, and how it will play out, as I told in the previous example, will be dependent on the placement. So the manifestations will be different, but the pattern of life, in a very broad sense, if you understand, you know, you would, after, as I said, after a few sessions, you'll be able to make out the patterns in your life. So these patterns will, you'll be able to tell that if I am this ascendant, then these are the few things which is becoming my pattern. Once you start understanding the patterns of your life through ascendant, through Lagna, you will be able to channelize your work. And what I have seen is, and this is what the remedies are supposed to be essentially. See, the remedies told by the Rishis or indirectly, indicated by the Rishis are such that it makes the experience easy. If the purpose of your ascendant is to give you this experience, so once you complete that experience, then there is no second thought, and the rest of the life becomes easy. So these are the three basic purposes of life which I wanted to talk about in the first class. We'll go into detail of sun, moon, other planets, each of the houses, and then you'll be able to do give feedback about my class, whether you would like me to continue, or if there are not enough audiences, or if enough people do not want it, then I will stick to my small videos which anyway come. Do subscribe to the channel to keep yourself updated about the various videos that I give. And do also join my Telegram channel where I am regularly giving small updates about astrology, various transits. Thank you and namaskar once again.